A new ladder season has begun in StarCraft 2 just a couple of days ago, and with that, a lot of the old maps have been replaced with new ones. So today is going to be my very first cast ever on Ascension to Aiur LE. Spawning in the southeast position, playing with the red Terran pieces, we have none other than the player known as Xerac. And his opponent spawning in the top left, playing in blue, and playing also with the Terran bits, he goes by the nickname of Dr. Krieger. Now, both of these players are indeed in Gold League, so that does mean that this is going to be a viewer submitted replay. Now, quick look at the map right here, Ascension to Aiur. I actually haven't really played too many games on this map myself yet either, but regardless, we got the main base right over here. The natural expansion is pretty easy to take. However, when it comes to the third base one, you got a couple of different options. Either you go towards the low ground right here, or you expand down south, which is a little bit further away from the natural, I suppose, but a little bit easier to expand as well. Other than that, there are quite a couple of bases here to take, but for the most part, this is one of the most straightforward maps, and I gotta be honest, I actually really like the look of this one. I'm excited to see what the professional gamers have got in store for us today, but it looks like Xerac will be able to start building his very first barracks here on the other end of the map. Now, I was saying professional gamers, of course, these dudes are indeed in Gold League, but they're, you know, professional Gold League players. Is that something you can say? Regardless though, Xerac will be able to start bumping out a bunch of these refineries here. He's going for that second one right from the get-go. I was assuming at least that was going to be the case if he plans on building quite a few Reapers on the other end of the map. But then again, he's only sent a single SCV. Meanwhile though, in the blue Terran's main, we do see that second barracks go down right here too, so he is opening up rather safely. Also scouting about right now with that SCV inside of his main base to make sure that there are no hidden buildings anywhere to be seen, and he's going to be capable of starting up that factory rather early on into this match. And I was going to say, Xerac, he did not send a second SCV with this, and instead he's building up a factory as well as a tech lab. So this may be... No, it almost has to be Proxy Siege Tank, right? Here's the thing. If you're not opening up with a Reaper, like for example Dr. Krieger is doing, you're gonna not have a whole lot of vision here whatsoever. Even if you were to send an SCV out in the earlier stages of the match, it's not going to be able to get inside of your opponent's main base no matter what. And actually, for the time being, Dr. Krieger is going to be quite blind. Now, it could also be a Proxy Thor, which would be a little bit more uncommon. I think at the very least, at the very beginning of this, we'll see Xerac start off with a siege tank just because you can float up that barracks and get a lot of high ground vision. As I'm sure many of you are aware, siege tanks can shoot away further than they can see. And of course, if you want to shoot at these depots, for example, you're going to have something that spots that high ground. And indeed, the very first Proxy Siege tank is currently in production. Meanwhile, in the main base right here of Dr. Krieger, and you can see these are actually really close together. If a Marine stood on the perimeter, I mean, with binoculars at the very least, it should be able to spot the opposing barracks. But regardless, we do see that switch over right now with that tech lab for that starport. So that means that Dr. Krieger can very shortly start up either Raven production, but more than likely Banshees. I would really like to see that. He immediately goes into the personal cloaking field here as well, which is huge. And he's going to follow this up with the very first Banshee in this match. First siege tank is out, and I like this a lot indeed. Xerac is gonna be capable of floating upwards with that barracks, spotting what is up ahead, and very shortly he should be able to scout out that there are indeed a few of these Marines. Siege tank should be able to take out all of these units quite easily. Apparently one of these Marines has been in training for years, but immediately ends up falling. However, the siege tank in the back will be able to spot those three Marines just fine, and they will all go down in just one bloody splash. Now, second siege tank is currently, or actually, ooh, hold that thought. I noticed that something was producing. I assumed that that was going to be a siege tank, but instead, he's following this up with a Thor. I like this one a lot. At the same time, a whole lot of SCVs are being pulled as well. Xerac is going to be floating a lot of gas, but on top of that, he's going to be capable of repairing here, which is going to be absolutely essential because Dr. Krieger has got his Banshee out already. I'm not sure if there's going to be any energy available, however. Currently, there is energy for a single scan, which I like a lot. The Thor, for the time being, will be able to shoo away at this Banshee. But of course, he's going to have to be careful because this Thor can easily go down here as well. That Banshee taking a lot of damage eventually will end up falling. And with these SCVs here, he's going to be capable of repairing up that Thor for a very long amount of time. And while Dr. Krieger is trying to stabilize here, and it looks like he's trying to get an expansion going here on the low ground, he is not out of the water just yet. In particular, with that second factory just about to finish up here, and another Thor joining the battlefield here very shortly. Dr. Krieger following this up right now with his own siege tank. He's trying desperately to get as many units out here as he possibly can. We'll be able to start up a command center inside of the main base, but this is looking like a really solid match here already. Dr. Krieger, though, is going to be in a bunch of trouble, in particular once the second Thor here arrives. Siege Tank is going to be capable of doing a lot of splash damage, of course. The single target damage, in particular to armored units, such as the Thor, is very substantial. He's got to be careful. You do not want to lose a single Thor right there to that siege tank, but it looks like the SCVs will be able to repair this at the very least for a little while longer. Once again, though, that splash damage right there, absolutely substantial. The Banshee will go out, or will get on out of there, at least out of that engagement for the time being. It will need to get repaired back up, because with another volley of those siege tanks, or rather of these Thors, it will end up falling. Marines now also available. Of course, you know, the range right there on those Thors is absolutely substantial, and that siege tank wanders a little bit too close to the ramp, and it will end up falling. That Banshee also ends up getting killed there by the Thors, and with more and more production here, or at the very least, as soon as he can afford it, Zirak is looking to close out this game very, very early on into this match. And finally, Dr. Krieger is also pulling off a couple of these SCVs from the mineral line to try and get as much repair here on that siege tank as he possibly can. Second command center did finish up, but the Thors are trying to close in. Look at that range. They're capable of dealing so much damage, and if these SCVs are not there to repair in time, they will be able to get taken care of just fine. All of these siege tanks, while they're dealing damage, they're gonna be capable of cleaning up one of the Thors, but once more, one ends up getting killed. One of the Liberators now available here as well. SCVs desperately trying to repair it to the best of their abilities. No, you know, high payload being activated there, so that does mean that the Liberator will be able to start taking and clearing out this base at the very least for the time being. Zirak's aggression has been deflected quite efficiently here as well, and actually, I gotta hand it right here to Dr. Krieger. While he ended up losing far more units than he needed to, it looks like while he tried stabilizing at like the 3-minute mark, eventually he ended up getting to the point where he's gonna be able to start macroing off of 2 bases here. Zirak, though, in the meantime, looks like he's also looking to take an expansion here in the low ground, or on the low ground rather, on his end of the map. He's finally going to be capable of starting up at barracks once again, because you got to keep in mind he lost the very first one, so at this point he's not going to be capable of adding on any additional tech, you know, at the very least not any additional factories here, which you may very well be looking to take here very shortly. Now, there is a Liberator, of course, on the other end of the map. It will immediately get picked off as well, and while that one already served its purpose in shooting down the Thors, it sadly did not get any additional damage done. Actually, I was assuming here Zirak was trying to close... Oh my god, he's just gonna continue onwards? This seems a little bit ambitious. Eventually, though, that Liberator is trying to siege up right there on top of the factories. Eventually, that Liberator will also end up getting killed. But you can see the amount of damage that a Thor deals to a Liberator in this mode is not all too impressive. Instead, if you switch it over, I'm pretty sure it's gonna be able to pick those off quite easily here too. Another siege tanks, or 2 more siege tanks actually, in production right now at every given moment for Dr. Krieger. So I think once those finish up, the engagement will be shut down for good, and I think that Zirak will need another attack plan if he plans on staying in this game for a little while longer. We got that command center going up on the low ground right now. He's also following this up with 2 more missile turrets to really prevent those Liberators from dealing all of the damage. You can see right now it's a little tricky. I mean, you cannot quite see up that high ground, so that does mean that you're either gonna have to sacrifice a couple of these hits, or you're just simply gonna eat the damage here on the Thors as well as these SCVs. Now, with the siege tank joining, however, of course, Liberator siege tank, one of the best compositions in all of StarCraft 2, they're gonna be able to shoo these units away once and for all. Command center just about to finish up, and actually Dr. Krieger, I mean, he hasn't really done a whole lot. What I would have really liked to see is for him to go ahead and counterattack. I mean, you got those starports out, or you got that starport out right now, right? You got a whole bunch of Marines. Whenever you see your opponent making units this close to your end of the map, they probably have very little for defense. And as you can see, there's literally one hero Marine here trying to take control of this natural, but other than that, one medevac filled up with a bunch of Marines will easily shut this down. Instead, though, Dr. Krieger decides to push onwards here. He's trying to do the damage, but it's not working out in his favor whatsoever, because a lot of these units will end up getting killed. Once again, though, we see no additional production being added on. Zirak is gonna try his best and get that combat shield research done here before getting himself that Stimpack upgrade, which is a rather interesting choice as well. I think I would prefer Stimpack in this kind of scenario over combat shield, but regardless, if you're gonna continue trying to close out the game, I guess you may as well just try and rally your units across the map. Another Banshee going down right now. Dr. Krieger still has got a bunch of Marines here in the main base. Come on, just one medevac would absolutely shut this down. Just a single medevac on the other end of the map would do so much damage. Doesn't even need to be that much. But slowly, Xerac is going to be capable of building up that SCV count. And of course, with that, a lot of additional Marines will be produced here as well. Both players trying to still skirmish here closer towards the blue player's end of the map. You can see though, Dr. Krieger is finally ramping up that production. You can see right here in that production tab, a lot of units are being produced, 2 siege tanks at a time. We see that Liberator, Banshee kind of shenanigans, a bunch of Marines and Marauders here as well. And while apparently that Widow Mine will be able to get a hit off, the Liberator of course can withstand a little more damage than just that. And I think that the siege tank will indeed end up getting killed. Now the Thor also capable of picking off that Liberator there from a distance, but Dr. Krieger's siege tank there in the back will be able to pick up the final 2 SCVs that we're repairing here. And finally, Dr. Krieger, he's looking to move onwards. He's got himself that Stimpack research, but is not done just yet. If he plans on engaging this, he's got to be extremely careful. Once again though, I don't think he needs to. Like, just simply moving across the map here with a medevac would be extremely beneficial. But while apparently both players still want to skirmish here at the potential 3rd base location for the Terran player in blue, I'm starting to wonder if this is an engagement that Dr. Krieger will win. I mean, Xerac, he's killing a lot of units. I mean, these siege tanks, while they end up falling here as well, they are trading cost efficiently because, I mean, Dr. Krieger is just randomly running more and more units down that ramp, not realizing apparently that you can simply bypass it. You can just simply walk across the map, and that is usually the case at the beginning of every season. Players start playing a little bit more cheesy than they ideally want to. Now, Dr. Krieger, of course, did finish up that personal cloaking field, so, you know, that Banshee should be able to get at least a couple of kills here, while the Marines are currently capable. I think that Xerac currently is preoccupied on the other end of the map. There we go, the Marines will be able to shoot it down. But generally speaking, at the beginning of the season, right, like we see right now, players play a lot more aggressive because, you know, it takes a little bit of time for people to figure out how the map work out and what areas you need to scout and what you need to really figure out. But I think that this is more or less a case of tunnel visioning. Like, your tunnel visioning is it's a really like common concept in StarCraft 2 in general, right? I think that Dr. Krieger, I mean, he knows that his opponent tried to proxy him in the earliest stages of the game, and he knows that he got ahead out of that engagement, but now he's trying to kill it, and he's been doing so over the last 5 minutes, where I think just a single set of dropships, or maybe just a single medevac here altogether would be so very helpful. And finally, we do see those medevacs in production. I'm secretly hoping that he's going to load up Marines immediately and run them across the map. In particular, now that Xerac apparently finished up his combat shield, he's also rallying all the Marines across. And actually, Dr. Krieger, he's the kind of guy that does all or nothing. He's not gonna go for a single bit of run-by with a single medevac filled with units. Instead, he is sending the vast majority of his army across, holding that high ground position here instead, which is fine, but I would really like to see a couple more units here left at home, because if Xerac decides to unsiege, he can just simply push up this ramp. He just needs to scan, figure out how many units there are, and he's gonna be capable of dealing so much damage. There we go. We get that siege tank damage going in right there once again, now that the Liberator is providing that high ground vision. At the same time though, the majority of the Marauder siege tank army has made its way across the map, and I think this may very well turn into a bit of an awkward base tradey kind of scenario. Dr. Krieger rather, is making that 3rd base right now down at the 3rd base expansion, but he's also going to be able to deal a lot of damage in the meantime on the other end of the map. A single Thor now got dropped inside of the main base of Dr. Krieger here as well, so he's going to need to be capable of dealing with all of this aggression here while also microing on the other end of the map. And actually, currently, all of these SCVs are mostly just being run out of that. The Terran player in red is desperately trying to retrieve as many of these minerals as he can, but at this point, he's gonna end up losing so many of these resources. He's still gonna be able to continue onwards with that harassment though, picking off all of these attachments right here on these unit-producing structures, which is very, very helpful. At the same time, all of the siege tanks are finally unsieging and are looking to push up this ramp, and it looks like that is gonna be very beneficial, because now that that single Thor was in the main base, all of the units have left the top of that ramp, and the tanks right here from Xerac are gonna be able to siege up in the natural of his opponent. And while he's losing all the bases here at home, this is not game over just yet, because where is the Terran player in blue gonna go? Of course, all of these buildings can lift up, right? And that's exactly what we are seeing right here for Xerac as well, desperately trying to float that command center away towards that 3rd and 4th base location. At the same time, so much damage here is being dealt on both ends of the map map. I think that command center will eventually end up falling. 3 Marines with Stimpack as well as Combat Shield will be able to deal a lot of additional damage to that command center, and there, indeed, it will end up falling. Liberators trying to push onwards right here, basically clearing out the way for these siege tanks to move up the ramp there as well. Nice little bit of pickup micro there, right there by Zerek, trying to do as much damage as he possibly can. A new command center is now being constructed here in the center of the map, and at the same time, that third base, I think it was at least constructed over here at the third base location, has been floated down to the south position here instead. Siege tanks have made their way inside of the main base right now of the Terran player in blue, and this could be anyone's game at this point in time. Zirak currently has got absolutely zero, command centers, nor does he have any supply depots. He's currently at 0 supply right here, but when it comes to army counts, both players dead even. When it comes to worker counts, I guess that Zirak is slightly ahead, but he's currently not mining here whatsoever. Dr. Krieger smartly getting himself that orbital command so he can start dropping those mules, but yeah, of course, yeah, you can float off so many of these buildings into the different corners of the map, and they are very, very difficult to kill if you do not have any kind of air support, and that seems to be the case right now. Zirak is getting himself that single Liberator. He's going to be able to bring all of his siege tanks over here as well, now that he killed the majority of his opponent's main base, and apparently he's trying to hold the line here at this expansion instead, now that it has finally finished up. Now he's gonna have to make a lot of these supply depots before he's gonna be capable of continuing onwards with that production. Needs to be very careful. He's still got a bunch of additional resources, but apparently Dr. Krieger, while he does not currently know where his opponent's base is mining, has returned all of his troops towards his only mining expansion here, or shortly to be mining expansion, in the bottom left corner of the map. Now that stim right there was an absolute waste. That stim was crucial. I think that he meant to stim maybe a couple of these units here on the other end. Maybe he had some other Marines walking somewhere, or I guess maybe it's these ones right here in the bottom right corner. I think they picked up that single starport that was floating off there above that high ground. But other than that, I mean, that was a huge loss. He's not going to be capable of healing up these Marines at the very least for quite a little while. Mules will be able to land, however, and that is a big deal. Of course, Zirak's army is significantly higher tier here, so while it is 39 versus 37 army supply, and it seems to be dead even, Siege Tank, Liberators, and Thors are very, very good. There's a handful of Marines here as well that are still going to be capable of dealing a bunch of damage. There's currently no Stimpack available for those. We do, of course, have that combat shield, as you can see by those beautiful shields that they are currently equipping. But Dr. Krieger now knows exactly about the mining bases right here of his opponent, and we'll see if he decides to make a move for it. I'm so worried though, like one shell, right? One shell in the middle of these Marines will absolutely obliterate all of them. Just the siege tanks alone can take this engagement extremely efficiently. Dr. Krieger, however, apparently is still feeling pretty confident. He's got some, unit-producing structures here on the other end of the map. He's going to be able to land those and potentially start creating some additional troops right from here as well. That starport, however, not going to be able to live to fight another day, as indeed it does explode it with that final round of volleys right there from the Thor. 19 kills actually on this single Thor. That one has fought to, quite a little while here already. Now Zirak is going to be able to pick up the central part here of the map where there are currently 2 watchtowers. Very, very important ones because you can see the attack paths. But at this point, it's hard to judge exactly how much mining is going on. Of course, we can see pretty much everything, but both of these players are trying to figure out exactly how much opposition they are currently up against. Dr. Krieger still having those 2 medevacs here. I would really like to see him retrieve those towards his, I guess we can call this the main base right now, just because these Marines desperately need some healing. But Zirak did just see that there is a bunch of army over here in the bottom left corner, as well as a single barracks, so I think he may make the assumption that the final mining base here for his opponent is going to be located nearby here as well. Zirak, apparently, he's looking to move across the map. He's sending quite a few of his troops right towards his bottom left, and this is going to be a very, very tough engagement. Of course, Dr. Krieger, right? He does have +1/+1 as well as combat shield and and Stimpack right there on these Marines. So that is an absolutely menacing army. But at this point, he has absolutely no idea that this is going on. These siege tanks are currently getting in position with that high ground vision that these Liberators and these medevacs can provide. All of these Marines will end up getting shelled at right from the get-go, and look at the amount of damage. I don't think that single Stimpack really matters here anymore either, because Dr. Krieger is desperately trying to close this one out, and while the army supply counts were even here for just a little while, eventually just the sheer amount of tech that the Terran player in red has should be enough to close this one out right now, because the final 2 siege tanks will immediately get shut down. The Liberator is moving in position to pick off the last of these SCVs, and while apparently we currently see no movement here whatsoever because he's currently busy microing on the other end, there's still a couple of these Widow Mines ready to defend against this aggression. And with some great positioning there by Zirek, and with some very aggressive play, it looks like eventually he's going to be able to obtain the victory. Now, if you have got an absolutely insane match on one of the new maps as well, just like this one, because this match was absolutely awesome, you can now submit your replays to replays@lowko.tv. There's a simple email address. I would really appreciate it if you could get some more games on the new maps, just because those are really exciting, and, you know, most of you will be able to learn a little bit more from those as well. But other than that, I want to thank you very much so for watching. Thank you right there to whichever one of these 2 players has submitted this replay, but if we were to guess, it's probably going to be Zirek. I mean, you were a little cheesy, but I thank you very much for submitting this replay. But other than that, I want to thank you for watching. Have an amazing day. Do not forget to smile alright, and I will see you in the next one.